Good morning, America. This is our second segment this morning. My name is Michael Evans. You're listening to America's Voice Now. In our first hour, we discussed the treason of the gutting of the Posse Comitatus Act and how the United States of America has succumbed its republic to a rule change. We have fallen under tyranny. America, as you know it, is gone. If you haven't caught that, do yourself a favor. Get your wife, your children, your husband, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your friends, your cooperating members in your clergy and your churches. Make yourself and them aware of the treason that has just been committed and went into effect on May 13th.
Hey, Mike.
The United States is now under official martial law.
Mike, you realize in this, okay, that it was attorneys. If you go back and check the history of this, I will guarantee you that it was attorneys from the Department of Defense, okay, attorneys from the U.S. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, whatever, that wrote this, okay. That means that under the CFR, the way that CFRs are brought into quote-unquote federal law, that you now have the Department of Defense making federal law.
By ruling. There's no vote of Congress here, people. There's no adherence to the Constitution whatsoever. The Federal Corporation of the United States of America has declared that you and the Constitution are obsolete. Now, when you look at how and why and under what circumstances this was done, recognize that this went into effect on May 13th.
But?
Recognize also that this went into effect without any judicial oversight, without any congressional oversight. It was merely a rule change. And while our alleged leaders are pontificating like a group of fat marshmallows on camera, talking about the IRS, talking about Benghazi, talking about the AP phone scandal, our nation has fallen. America has fallen.
And the Department of Defense wrote the regulation that did it.
We've fallen under military rule. They haven't fired the first shot yet. But let me tell you why this was done and made and put in play by May 13th. July 4th is a month and a half away. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what? Independence Day. We are literally in a position where they are desperately waiting for the bullied to throw a punch. And the bully is backed up by literally tens of thousands of armed to the teeth military and law enforcement. And when the bullied, when the kid, the red-faced, freckled kid, whose ears are burning red because he's been slapped around and punched, taunted, betrayed, when he throws a punch back in his own defense, the dog pile's going to jump on him like a ton of bricks. That is why this was passed now. July 4th is right around the corner. They know, empirically, without a doubt, beyond any shadow of any doubt, that civil unrest, civil disturbance, to use their words, is coming. Will it occur July 4th? I don't know. My crystal ball's broken. I can tell you this. We're not getting out of here by 2016. To borrow a phrase from The Doors, no one here gets out alive. Make no mistake about it. They have slammed the gates shut, and you are now a prisoner, undeclared, but a prisoner nonetheless. And you are underneath a military junta, a coup d'etat. Make no mistake about it. An unelected, unauthorized, unconstitutional man is now in charge of the United States of America, and he has the backing of the entire Pentagon, of the Department of Defense, and a civilian force equally powerful, equally financed, equally armed to the DOD.
And they know who you are when they come to get you because the state of Missouri gave them a list.
Not to mention the fact that they've been building a dossier on you for over a decade now. So for any of you out there who say, but I'm afraid to get on another list to share in my community, do yourself a favor, pack up and move over to China somewhere, because that's where we're headed. The tip of the iceberg here is what you're seeing today. But mark my words and make no mistake about it. The United States of America is now no longer under civilian control. This is, and will go down in history as the change that occurred that brought down the United States of America. The great republic has fallen, and it's done so to a rule change.
A regulation.
A rule change written by lawyers, conniving scumbags, carpetbaggers, liars, thieves, cutthroats, statists, treasonists, tyrants. Mark my words. This is inflammatory language, because what you have here is a fire raging behind a door. And the minute you touch that door, you will be burned. You can't see it. In fact, you can't even really feel the heat of it yet. But there's no longer a firewall between that room and this one. The firewall was the military. The firewall was the ability of the military to say, in the event that the president were to ever try to exercise tyrannical power, we would be able to cease that activity. Ladies and gentlemen, they just, we handed them the gun to defend us, and they just handed it off to the tyrant.
The firewall is supposed to be the Constitution.
The firewall is now the Second Amendment. That is the firewall.
There you go.
The firewall is now the Second Amendment. What we have is the fall of the United States of America, nothing less. Now, there are those out there who will say, that's way too strong language. Okay. Believe that. Continue on in your utopian fantasy. But mark my words. March 13th, 2013 will go down in history. That will be the day known far and wide as the day that America capitulated to tyranny.
Mike, earlier you were talking about Benghazi. What's the real story with Benghazi?
The real story that the press will never tell you about, and you'll never hear out of the mouths of the congressman. Key operative phrase there, by the way, on the word con. Or key, I should say key emphasis. Is that the real issue behind Benghazi was guns to Islamofascists. That was the real issue. Forget all the posturing. Forget all the pontificating. Forget these fat marshmallows sitting in Washington, blabbing on camera. Forget the fact that 4 men were killed. Because the ambassador who was killed was negotiating a gun deal. You know why you're not going to hear about it?
For the same reason you're not going to hear any more about Fast and Furious.
Well, the reason that you're not going to hear about it is that the Republicans who are leading the charge on Benghazi are covering their own ass. Because this issue of gun trading was their idea.
Why would we be giving guns to those people? Tell me, do.
We're going to have to wait until after the break because it's going to take me longer than 50 seconds. The simple truth is this, ladies and gentlemen. The real Benghazi scandal is being ignored and hidden from your eyes.
You're going to have to explain it to me. I'm a simple man.
The real story with Benghazi is this is all about running guns. Not a few guns like Fast and Furious. That's like a kid who stole 3 pieces of candy out of a jar. We're talking about the heist of the crown jewels in comparison.
Is there a theater involved here? Kabuki?
Oh, Kabuki Theater, absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get in depth into where Benghazi is really, or what it's really about, I should say. We'll be back in just a moment.
At age 34, Peter Herrick joined the Navy Reserve and was deployed to Iraq.
When the mortar round hit, I was completely knocked out.
When he returned home, Paralyzed Veterans of America was there to help. Paralyzed Veterans of America Service Officer Raymond Bruce.
We advocate, we educate, and we process claims through the VA, and we follow that claim from the beginning to the end.
You can help. Visit pva.org, a public service of Paralyzed Veterans of America.
There's one man on this earth who really gets it.
It comes down to one sentence and 3 words: secure the border, and they won't do it. Well, look, we got a trigger here and a plan in 6 months, and I don't want to hear the bull crap, the bureaucratic bull crap. Folks, I lived through this in 1986. This is a redo, or some of you might say a redux, but it's a redo. Secure the border.
Mark Levin is on the radio.
Weeknights from 5 till 8, Mark Levin on the Ozarks Best News Talk.
The real issue behind Benghazi, ladies and gentlemen, is a replication of the Iran-Contra affair, but without the dope. Guns. The arming of Islamic radicals. I'm going to point you to a story that's one of the very few out there. There was an article out there called "Amid Political Posturing, the Real Benghazi Scandals Are Ignored." Benghazi Gate is not about the deaths of 4 Americans. That's what they want you to think it's about. It's not about whether Hillary Clinton lied. It's not about whether Barack Obama went to bed to give himself plausible deniability. All of those things are in there. But they're not the true crux of the crisis. The true crux of the crisis is that the Islamic radicals who attacked Benghazi were the same people let loose by the U.S.-led attack on Libya. This is from Paul. They were the rebels on whose behalf the U.S. overthrew the Libyan government. Ambassador Stevens was slain by the same Islamic radicals he personally assisted into power just over 1 year earlier. Now, the Republicans aren't going to tell you this. And the reason they're not is because they supported the administration's lawlessness and our entry into Libya in a place where we had no business being. At very best, they did nothing to stop it. They helped Obama throw out the hyperbole and the BS that this was necessary and that Muammar Gaddafi was the tyrant of the day. You know, Ron Paul, and I don't care whether you agree with him or disagree with him from a political perspective of whether or not you wanted him for president, if you can say one thing about the guy, it's that he talks truth when others are playing smoke and mirrors games with you. Here's what he had to say. Neither side wants to talk about the real lesson of Benghazi, that interventionism always carries with it unintended consequences. The U.S. attack on Libya led to the unleashing of Islamic radicals in Libya. These radicals have destroyed the country, murdered thousands, and killed the U.S. ambassador. Some of these then turned their attention to Mali, which now required another intervention by the U.S. and France. Well, what's really important here, well,
what was it that Jefferson and Madison had to say about all this? About do not become involved in foreign entanglements.
Oh, well, that George Washington said that in his closing remarks as he left the presidency as well, that America should be friends with all, allies with none, and we should remain separate from foreign entanglement.
Yeah, good luck with that over the last 200-plus years, huh?
Paul goes on to say that the real lesson of Benghazi will not be learned because neither Republicans nor Democrats want to hear it. But it is our interventionist foreign policy and its unintended consequences that have created the problem, including the attack and the murder of Ambassador Stevens. The disputed talking points and the White House whitewashing are just a sideshow. You know, Ron Paul's son, asked a key question during an open house hearing. Here's what it was. He asked whether the U.S. government, and he asked this directly of Hillary Clinton, was involved, quote, involved in any procuring of weapons, transfer of weapons, buying, selling, anyhow transferring weapons to Turkey out of Libya. Let me tell you that was the only true phrase that came out so far in every Benghazi statement, every Benghazi hearing, every Benghazi testimony. To Turkey? Asked Clinton. I will have to take that question for the record. Nobody's ever raised that with me.
Is there anybody in the entire world that thinks that with the exception of the state of Israel, we have any loyal friends in that entire portion of the world? Are there any critically thinking people that believe it?
We have no friends over there. We have only those which are pawns.
I believe Israel is our friend. And now it might be from their own, they have their own concerns, okay? I mean, there's a box of selfishness, okay, in reference to why they are loyal to us, and I think why we should be loyal to them. But I think that with the exception of Israel,
I apologize if I gave the impression that I was including Israel in that, and I misunderstood your question. Yeah. The simple truth is this. As far as the rest of the world is concerned, our goal should be simply this. Not isolationism, but separatism. We have no business involving ourselves in the affairs of these foreign countries. If they choose to fight amongst themselves, if they choose to play games and play the Game of Thrones, that's entirely up to them.
Don't we have enough problems in our own backyard to take care of?
I mean, not to mention the fact that we're expending our national treasure of our youth.
On what?
And we're expending the financial treasure of our nation fighting wars which we have no stake in, we have no interest in, the American people don't want, the embattled participants that we're either fighting against or assisting don't want us involved. They only want what we can offer them, which is guns and money. Guns and money.
That's a song.
And I'm going to tell you something right now. That key question from Rand Paul to Hillary, the traitor Clinton, was the only true question that has been asked, the only true statement that has been made regarding all of this.
And what happened after the question was asked?
She said, to Turkey? Like with this real incredulous look on her face. I'll have to take that question for the record. Nobody's ever raised that with me. She later backtracked that, by the way, slightly, saying that the question would have to be raised with the agency that ran the annex in Benghazi. You see, here's the kicker. You notice that they worked very, very hard to make sure that they changed the word consulate
to diplomatic. What do they call it? Diplomatic
mission.
Post? Diplomatic mission. There you go.
Diplomatic mission. And here's why. Remember, these are slimy scumbags who utilize words to twist the meaning of things. And if you say it's a consulate, mark my words, Mike, if you say that this is a consulate, then it's an official government policy.
Well,
but if it's a mission or an annex, then it's a rogue operative within the CIA.
And if it's a...
Just like the IRS in Cincinnati.
Yeah, there you go. And if it's a consulate, then United States territory has been attacked.
Correct.
And if it's an annex,
it's not.
It's like the warehouse got attacked.
Sure. And the difference, of course, is significant in that if it's the United States of America that's been attacked, we should basically level that ground with cruise missiles. Here's what you don't know, folks. Rand Paul, excuse me. Despite the, I'm just going to read this to you because it's very interesting. Despite the lack of answers, Senator Paul has continued to pursue the issue, talking about the alleged gun running in TV and radio interviews. What are they covering up? Asked Rand Paul during a March interview. I have a feeling that it has something to do with the CIA annex. See, look, the simple truth is this. He knows what it is. He's got to be careful that he doesn't come right out and say it. Because the implications of opening up that Pandora's box are so significant to the safety and stability of the people in power, himself included, that he has to be very, very, very cautious about how he steps upon this ground.
And you know it's never the thing, it's the lie about it that gets you in trouble.
I had a feeling that it had something to do with the CIA annex. You know, a week before the ambassador was killed in Libya, a ship left Libya and docked in Turkey, and it actually interviewed the captain of that ship, and who said that there were arms on board. We'll be right back to finish this.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. 60 people hurt, 5 critically, 1 very critically in last night's crash of 2 commuter trains in Connecticut.
The national authorities are dispatching folks to begin an investigation. That means that we will secure the area until they arrive and can conduct that investigation.
Connecticut Governor Daniel Malloy, there's sure to be another probe as the NTSB tries to figure out what went wrong when a plane was forced to make an emergency landing overnight.
None of the 34 souls on board a U.S. Airways flight were hurt when the turboprop plane was forced to make a belly landing. The flight, which left Philadelphia around 11 p.m. Friday, experienced trouble with its landing gear as it approached Newark Liberty around 1 this morning.
Fox News Radio's Karen McHugh. No passengers were hurt. And the Powerball jackpot is $600 million now. The drawing is tonight. Fox News. We report, you decide.
I'd like to thank our sponsor, Wits End Classic Barbershop, who is the sponsor of our telephone lines this morning. They're located on the square in West Plains. It's Wits End Classic Barbershop. Thanks to our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun. You can find them on the web at westplainspawn.com. They can be reached at 417-256-3000, and they're located on Route 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. 400 guns undercover. Pizza Hut, our friends down there on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch menu with salad, pizza, and pasta. Excellent opportunity for you to have a great lunch and eat well and something tasty. Our friends over at the Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com. Telephone 417-257-7799. Our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can be found on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. My friend Brian there can be reached at 870-492-4030. They're located a half mile east of Walmart at 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's right off the square in West Plains at 2 Evans Arcade, and you can reach her at 255-2253. And my friend Bill Stone over at Stone Construction. If you're considering doing remodeling, custom or new construction, or anything like commercial, give Bill a call and have him bid on your project at 293-0116.
They say they want to control your guns, but what they really want to do is control you. Hi, it's Glenn Beck. Since the gun debate was settled in 1791, it's obvious this debate is really about control. Control over taxes, healthcare, schools, and yes, our Second Amendment rights. My new book, Control, Exposing the Truth About Guns, picks apart line by line the idiotic gun control arguments being spewed all over the media. From Piers Morgan to Michael Bloomberg to Rachel Maddow, the lies end now. Control, a new book by me, Glenn Beck. Pick it up or download your copy today. Visit glennbeck.com for more.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information. Email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, look for partly sunny skies and a high of 84 to kick off the weekend. It'll be partly cloudy tonight at 68. Sunday should be mostly sunny and warmer with a high of 87 with winds to 25 miles an hour. There's a chance of showers and thunderstorms Monday afternoon with a high of 82. I'm Rod Tanner, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. The next governor of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli. The current senator from South Dakota, John Thune. I'll also be joined by Bill Kristol, and we'll talk with all of them about immigration reform and what is ahead in the United States Senate, and Marco Rubio. Don't miss any minute of the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Sundays from 6 till 7, following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, the real truth of Benghazi is far deeper than you've been told or led to believe. What are they covering up? Asked Senator Paul during a March interview. I have a feeling that it had something to do with the CIA annex. You know, a week before the ambassador was killed in Libya, listen to this quote, people, because if you're not aware of the real depth of the deprivation of what's going on in our country, here's what you hear. You hear this statement says it all. And this is out of the mouth of a senator who actually interviewed the captain of this ship. A week before the ambassador was killed, a ship left Libya and docked in Turkey. And I actually interviewed the captain of that ship, who said there were arms on board, and the captain witnessed the rebels taking the arms and disputing over who got what. there were grenade launchers and that there were significant arms being transferred.
Didn't we have a guy that got in a whole bunch of trouble for dealing with anti-communists, giving weapons to anti-communists? So it's not okay to give weapons to anti or counter-communists, but it's okay to give weapons to people that we know and have proven their ability to turn around and bite us in the you-know-what.
Well, wait a second. It's worse than that, because this isn't
worse
people.
Than that?
Because these people are an active enemy. They're an active enemy. This would be no different than, for all intents and purposes, us being at war against the Vietnamese in the Viet Cong in Vietnam, while we find out that while we are resupplying our soldiers on Hill A with new ammunition, that as the helicopter flies over the hill, it drops another resupply to the enemy.
You know, I figured it out, Mike. All of a sudden the sun came up for me. You've been talking to listeners over months and months about critical thinking and looking and weighing the evidence and looking at things and making reasoned decisions. You're talking to the wrong crowd. You need to be talking to the people in our own government. Where's the critical thinking going on here?
There's none. That's the point. They've completely sold their souls and sold their integrity and their honor for whatever short-term beneficial gain they think they're going to get.
So we're supporting one fascist group against another fascist group.
We've always been doing that.
What is the fascist flavor of the day?
Right now it's Barack Hussein Obama, who just got the DOD to back his play. That was in our first hour. Admiral Lyons, Rear Admiral Lyons, retired. He's taken the CIA was arming the Syrian rebels theory and taken it a step further. Here's what he said in Lou Dobbs. I speculate that Ambassador Stevens was supposed to be kidnapped and held hostage in exchange for the release of the blind sheikh that we're currently holding in prison. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Now, in addition to that, there is a writer. I got to find her quote right now.
Boy, it's just, this is like going down the rabbit hole with Alice. You know, every time you think you might have even a little piece of a grip on what it is that's actually going on. And in the meantime, there's all these other things flying in your face. I mean, trying to keep track of it all between the IRS, the AP phone deal.
Yeah, it's a flood of information overload that no American can keep track of while they simultaneously try to get their kid to school on time and function in their job.
And you wonder, out of all of these things, what else is out there, what the magician's doing with his other hand in the meantime?
Well, the problem here is that this magician is like that Indian god that has 8 arms, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
7 of them are waving in the air, completely distracting you, while the last one is pulling a gun and it's pointing it at your face. Town Hall's Katie Kiefer wrote last week that here's her take on this. Obama, Hillary Clinton, and David Petraeus, quote, were likely behind a mishandled gun trafficking program excuse me, were likely behind a mishandled gun trafficking program that ended up arming the radical jihadist rebels who stormed the U.S. consulate and the CIA annex in Benghazi, Libya, on that fateful day. She points to Clinton's support for arming the Syrian rebels last summer, and here's the problem. That's why Petraeus is out. That's why Hillary Clinton is out. And that's why Obama was nowhere to be found that night. He needed plausible deniability. And he's the only one who couldn't resign.
Well, everybody else sure created a good amount of distance. And Hillary, because she has to create distance from this, because if she ever hopes to run for president, she's got to have enough of a buffer, because the electorate, as a rule, has a very short memory. Don't forget this.
Well, I'll tell you something else. I read an article the other day by the guy who was in charge of the impeachment hearings at Nixon. Hillary Clinton was 27 years old then, and she was called Hillary Rodham.
Right.
And they were discussing and trying to figure out a way if they could withhold legal counsel from Richard Nixon during his impeachment. And because there's never been a precedent set for that, or at least they couldn't. There was only one, and it wasn't a presidential impeachment. It was a lower level impeachment, I think, of a judge or some other official. But he did get counsel, and according to this guy, and he was the head. Hillary worked for him. She actually wrote a piece that declared that there was no precedent, and then went and took the files out of the public records and put them in an office building where they could not be seen or visible to the public. Don't forget, we didn't have the internet back then, right?
Right.
This was hard paper.
Yeah, if you didn't have a paper, it
took
didn't
the
exist.
records for this official and put them into an office building where the public did not have access, and submitted this paper anyway. And it was eventually tossed out by the committee because they said, you know, this precedential case does stand, and we know about it, and we can't pretend we don't know about it, even though you would like us to.
Right.
And this guy, who was her boss, said, I would never recommend her for any further position after that because of her dishonesty and her flagrant and blatant misuse of an abuse of her power and position and knowledge of the law. Let me tell you something. Hillary Clinton has been a traitor since she was 27 years old. If you put her into the power as the president of the next president, let me rephrase that, because she won't be the next president. She'll be the next dictator. And I just educated you in the first hour about how we are now under a complete and total dictatorial control.
Remember the help
by a man who is not authorized and not legally elected as the president of the United States. He's not an American citizen. You can sit there and throw all the birther crap at me you want, but there are actual courts, which the press will not tell you right now, that are hearing the real true issues about his candidacy and his legitimacy as a candidate. And I'm going to tell you something. A lot of these people who are out there want to make sure that you have no clue about what the real issues are, and they're Republicans, and I'm going to tell you why. Have you heard them throwing Marco Rubio's name out as a candidate for president? Have you heard them talking about Ted Cruz? Now, just for the record, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz are not natural-born citizens. So they're willing to let Obama slide because it's in their best interest to accomplish that, so that they can say, well, you let him be president, why can't you let me be president? Let me tell you something, America. Our nation is now under dictatorial federal law. We are under martial law. The DOD has given themselves, as of March 13th, or May 13th, complete dictatorial power to the tyrant known as Barack Hussein Obama. And I'm no longer going to call him president. He is now Dictator Obama. The scandals that are going on in this country, what you don't know can hurt you. And I'm going to tell you something right now. The depth of the depravity to which these scumbags will sink is unprecedented, and it is an absolute betrayal, and it is treason. Treason with a capital T. In fact, I'm going to go further. It's treason capitalized, the entire word, bolded, underlined, and italicized. What I told you about in the first segment, the first hour, that went into effect on May 13th, where the DOD has given themselves the ability to take control of the civilian government with the promise to hand it back as soon as it's convenient, is treason. We are now a dictatorship. The United States of America has fallen. The Republic is dead via rule change. Where's Congress? Where's the hearings? Where's the press? Where are the other radio hosts? Rush, Sean, Bill, Laura, Mark, where are you? America has fallen. and you've allowed it to go down under your watch. How shameful.
Stop and save up to $50 with Napa Know-How. Receive up to a $50 rebate Visa card by mail with qualifying brake parts purchase when you upgrade to premium or better. Stop by and ask for detail. Or how about a Napa Evercraft half-inch air impact wrench for just $37.99? Napa Know-How. Napa Auto Parts, 311 St. Louis Street in West Plains.
Napa Know-How. Napa Know-How. Napa Know-How. Napa Know-How.
Last time on the Dennis Miller Show.
Tebow cut yesterday, and I don't live in dream world, but you don't live in dream world if you tell me he didn't win. He won his ass off. Teebs, admire you immensely, my friend, and wish you, I don't know what will happen in the league, but I wish you the best. And you're a fine man. You're somebody that I would point at.
And you can catch Dennis Miller weekday mornings 9 to noon. Dennis Miller on the Ozarks' best news talk, 107.1 The Point.
The best shows in Branson are now playing at the Americana Theater. Don't miss Three Redneck Tenors, Branson's new smash hit, down-home laughs, and big city voices. It's a hilarious musical adventure that you just have to see. Also at the Americana Theater, Todd Oliver and his Talking Dogs. That's right, Talking Dogs. Hilarious comedy, great music, and family fun. A top 10 finalist on America's Got Talent, make sure to see Todd Oliver and Friends. If you want to rock and roll, check out Joseph Hall's Elvis Rock and Remember tribute. Joseph Hall will blow you away as Elvis, and his band is absolutely smoking. For you early birds, wake up with Cassandra and Friends. She plays at 10 a.m. with Branson's largest live band. Enjoy Cassandra's stunning voice and great comedy as well. The best shows in Branson are at the Americana Theater. Visit theamericanatheater.com for more information. That's theamericanatheater.com in Branson, Missouri.
All right. We're back. Ladies and gentlemen, what I've been telling you for the last 2 hours is beyond the shadow of a doubt the most treasonous acts that have ever been perpetrated against America. Our federal government at this point has declared itself to be a dictator. This president, this Pentagon, this Congress, all of them are participants. I'm going to read you something that's going to blow your doors off before the top of the hour. At the top of the hour, Doug Enyart, who is running for the seat to replace Joanne Emerson, will be joining us. That'll be in our next segment. I encourage you to hear what he has to say. And we'll raise this issue with him a little bit. And by the way, if you're not on your way to this rally that's being held this morning at the West Plains Civic Center, shame on you. This is hosted by the Sons of Liberty. It starts at 9:30 this morning, and it'll run till mid-afternoon. I'll be there, and I'll be introducing a special guest who is retired Command Sergeant Major Dan Page, and we are going to discuss in depth this issue, because what this is, and you're going to hear it from a military guy who's currently a law enforcement officer, but he's retired U.S. Army Special Forces, Command Sergeant Major. That's a pinnacle achievement. Nobody is, and by the way, he's had PSYOPs training in his background and his history. So, if you're not on your way to this location, shame on you. His training involves basic airborne, advanced infantry, armor scout recon, special operations, psychological operations, M60 course, Abrams M1 tank course, power generation, instructor training, non-commissioned officer, drill sergeant, advanced non-com, first sergeant academy, sergeant major academy. He's got a master's degree, criminal justice, legal studies, and international relations in his master's. His bachelor's is in criminal justice. Dual majors. Guy's been... well, just show up. Make no excuses. A failure on your part to show up is inexcusable. Because we are now, the entire planet is under the onslaught of tyranny. I'm going to read you something that from President James Buchanan. He gave a speech to Congress in 1860 in his State of the Union address. And in the waning minutes of this, I'm going to read this to you because I think it's important that you hear every single word of it. There's two areas that need to be stressed, but the entire thing is valuable. Without descending to particulars, it may be safely asserted that the power to make war against a state is at variance with the whole spirit and intent of the Constitution. Suppose such a war should result in the conquest of a state. How are we to govern it afterwards? Shall we hold it as a province and govern it by despotic power? In the nature of things, we could not by physical force control the will of the people and compel them to elect senators and representatives to Congress and to perform all of the other duties depending upon their own volition and required from a free citizens of a free state as a constituent member of the Confederacy. Here he was talking about the Civil War. But if we possessed this power, would it be wise to exercise it under existing circumstances? The object would doubtless be to preserve the Union. War would not only present the most effectual means of destroying it, but would vanish all hope of its peaceable reconstruction. Besides, in the fraternal conflict, a vast amount of blood and treasure would be expended, rendering future reconciliation between the states impossible. In the meantime, who can foretell what would be the sufferings and privations of the people during its existence?
Sounds to me like Buchanan saw what was coming.
Go ahead.
Sounds to me like Mr. Buchanan saw what was coming.
Well,
that was the war where we killed 600,000 people for the benefit of big government.
This is his referencing the Civil War. And those same truths that he spoke then are today more evident, more powerful than ever before. Hear me. I'm going to continue to read this to this quote. The fact is that our Union rests upon public opinion and can never be cemented by the blood of its citizens shed in civil war. If it cannot live in the affections of the people, it must one day perish. Congress possesses many means of preserving it by conciliation, but the sword was not placed in their hand to preserve it by force. But may I be permitted to solemnly to invoke my countrymen to pause and deliberate before they determine to destroy this, the grandest temple which has ever been dedicated to human freedom, since the world began. It has been consecrated by the blood of our fathers, by the glories of the past, and by the hopes of the future. The Union has already made us the most prosperous, and ere long will, if preserved, render us the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. In every foreign region of the globe, the title of American citizen is held in the highest respect, and when pronounced in a foreign land, it causes the hearts of our countrymen to swell with honest pride. Surely, when we reach the brink of the yawning abyss, we shall recoil with horror from the last fatal plunge.
That was Buchanan's State of the Union address before Lincoln took power. And if you have the time, I would urge people to take time to read the entire document, because he read the political landscape right then, and he saw exactly what was coming. And there is so much in that document from so long ago that applies to today. It is remarkable.
Folks, we have, I believe, and I truly believe this in my heart, that we have about reached the end limit of the true and time-honored foundations of the Constitution in America. These traitors have riven the Constitution. They have gutted it, destroyed it, separated us from the principles and the concepts and the beliefs, the ideals upon which our nation was founded. In a mad quest for power, these slimy, writhing, teeming maggots, millions of them, millions upon millions. These blood-sucking leeches and ticks and vermin that have infested our government have finally brought about its end. Our nation has reached the end of its great run. For 200 and almost 50 years, the United States of America has been the pillar that has held up the roof of freedom and liberty planet-wide. No other nation has ever been able to show and demonstrate and exemplify the beauty, the power, and the freedom that the United States has exhibited to the world. And I believe our time for that has come to an end. We'll be back with our third segment with Doug Enyart in just a moment.
West Plains, Missouri, it's KBMV Birch Tree, the Ozarks' best news talk.